Greetings programs, RDS here, back with another video, and today I'm just gonna talk. Today I'm gonna talk about motivation. What drives you? What moves you? What compels you to do what you do? And for me, and it's kind of fitting that I'm wearing Superman. What inspires me is other people, like people who are down and out, and have every reason to give up, and they don't. I guess it's perseverance. I guess that's what that would sum that up as. Is it would be perseverance. Just knowing that in all odds and in all difficulties that are coming at you, and all obstacles that you may not get past all of them, but you still find a way to make it to the other side. Make it to that finish line. Like hell or high water type of thing. And I think that's really what motivates me, and just having a conversation with a few people, and just really finding out what really drives them. I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, like money motivates me, or my kids or my family, and those are motivators. I think those are they're kind of like tools for motivation. I don't think they inspire though. Like money doesn't inspire anyone. I don't, it's you want money, you need money, right? But it's not necessarily like something you want to keep doing to obtain, right? Like you don't, like honestly, like I don't want to keep working at a deadbeat job, for pennies. I'm scratching for pennies. I'm working for crumbs, and I've said that in a personal note, and I just feel like it's just overall just a waste of time. Like I feel like it's not going anywhere. Like even if I were to climb like the corporate ladder, like where does it stop? Like when does not wanting money stop? So to me, it's not a motivator. Like you never not want money. Like it doesn't inspire. It might motivate you. It definitely gets you to get in your get in the shower, put your uniform on, get in your car and drive to work. Some people drive an hour or more. And some people do jobs that are overseas, and those could be fun jobs, and those can be really crappy jobs, what I mean? Like, and a lot of people do have crappy jobs, and they're working for pennies, like, for instance, military soldiers, like, they put their lives on the line, and they're fighting for our country, and for our, so-called freedom, but something inspires them, and it's not money. Money does not inspire them, does not inspire a soldier, you know what I mean? It motivates you, yes, like, because you want money, right? Because you want to have nice things, and you want to have, things for your kids or your family, your wife or whatever. But it doesn't inspire, you know what I mean? And that's really what I want to get down to. And that's why I pick perseverance, because I think in the end, perseverance is inspiring. Like, to see somebody struggle, you know what I mean? And I do what I can to help somebody, whether it is financial or like a financial necessity, or they just need help, whether they need somebody to listen to their story or to their plight, or someone to maybe possibly give them advice, or hell, even if it's something like, hey, can you take me to work for this next week because my car's in the shop and I don't have money to get it out, absolutely, you know what I mean? And I got, hey, can you, and that same person can be like, hey, I need to pick up my kid, or I need to drop my kid off, or, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like, I need to get to the Walmart, or the store, the grocery store to get groceries. But that's the kind of person I am. And I guess some people find inspiration in that, and they find things that help motivate them through that. Like, somebody's willing to help them, that's inspiring, right? Like a helping hand, somebody that'll go out of their way. Like, man, you're, even if it's something, to me that's something simple. I don't think about that, but I understand if I were in that situation, when you're in dire need, and somebody's like, yeah, I'll pick you up, man. I'll be there. You can count on me. It goes a long way, and to me, that's what's inspiring. You know what I mean? And it's not me persevering per se, but if I can help somebody, I can. If I can help somebody persevere, I can. I will. I can and I will. You know what I mean? And that's why I relate a lot of stuff to, like, superheroes and like the JLA and like Superman, because he inspires. The thing is, Superman inspires others So when he loses his way, those others will inspire him, will keep him on the straight and narrow. And everybody who knows me personally, Batman's actually my favorite superhero. But I love Superman just as much. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what I relate a lot of things to. I know it's a fictitious character, but I've learned a lot about perseverance from these fictitious characters, and I learned a lot about motivation and inspiration, and being that guiding light where there is none. And it's not just them. Like, I've learned that from a lot of stories I've read. Lord of the Rings is one of them. Which comes to mind. It's a great story. And a lot of people don't know this, and I always shock people when I tell them that. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author, the writer of Lord of the Rings, and creating that entire universe, that fantasy world, and literally the pioneer of fantasy worlds, was in World War II. And he attests a lot of that, his stories and his the story and how he tells it from World War II, his experience overseas and across these countries and meeting these great people, like, the thing between Legolas and Gimli, the racism or the hate between the two different races, is what we experience today, right now, you know what I mean, whites and blacks or whatever, and we're, and he related it to that, because there's that was a thing. It's still a thing, we always have these adversities, and it's great to see when people, even if it's just a little glimmer, you see, and I hate to say it this way, but I'm gonna call it for what it is, I can't sugarcoat it. When I see black and whites, they're going above and beyond to make a statement that we are just people, and we can coexist in this world if we try, if we give it a shot. Matter of fact, don't try it, do it. If we do it, making it a choice, because hate's not natural. It's learned, it's taught, and unfortunately a lot of hate comes from vicious cycles, and a lot of the inspiration for those things, are from our past, our learnings. Our parents teach us these things, where we're taught to judge, and we're taught, not to be, obviously there's always going to be sick people in the world, and that, because hate doesn't know color. Hate is hate, but hate is unfortunately inspiring, and it's the whole yin and yang, push and pull. It's an action for a reaction, a reaction for an action, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen. It's a cycle, you know what I mean? And it's always going to happen. And that is on the unfortunate side of inspiration, motivation. And I don't want to sour this message, with talking about negativities and the plight that we're now facing in this day and age, and why I'm just like, I'm freaked out, because, like, it's escalating, and it hasn't de-escalated at all. Like, it's just changing. It evolves. Hate is like a virus, right? And what does a virus do? The common cold never goes away. Common cold stays. The common cold may mutate. My dad just got the common cold a couple of weeks ago. And, he was like, man, I couldn't even remember the last time I had a common cold. The sniffles and the coughs, and the achiness, like, just nothing that knocked him down. And just, but he's 70. Like, a common cold's like a common cold to an infant at that age, Just doesn't, it's like multiplied. And, you know what I mean? But hate is like a virus. It'll never go away. It'll never die. It'll just mutate. It'll evolve into something else, and it just changes. The results are all the same. The means to the end are different, right? Like, racism will never go away. It's just hate. It's just hate on hate, and unfortunately, we'll never learn because we never stop to listen. We just point the finger. We know in our heart of hearts that whatever the reason is, someone's in the wrong. It doesn't matter what the situation is, because even if you were to say, like, this happened because of this, and then somebody's gonna be like, well, that only happened because of this, right? Like, it's always gonna be something for something. Like, it'll never just be what it is, and unfortunately, we'll never know the truths, and unfortunately, we don't have the ability to try and understand, and we don't have the ability to find a way to change it. We're just quick to point the finger, and we want blood, whether that's, metaphoric or literal. We want something to happen. You know, and I don't think people would even be happy if, you know, let's say, you know, like, for instance, these cop shootings and stuff, like, even if the cops or cop, let's say if there's just one instance where an officer shoots a man, regardless of the situation or why he felt that he needed to shoot that guy, if he were to lose his job, people would, there'd be people in this world that aren't happy. That's not significant. Although I think it's justified. I still think the person should be thrown in jail, right? Like, if you murder somebody in cold blood, you should go to jail. But unfortunately, the law is on his side, and the law will protect him, period, because he's willing to give up his life and protect these, you know, so on, quote unquote, protect these streets and protect, you know, the rights of us, the civilians, right? But that's power. That's power given to an individual. And if we look up on our history, power is power. You're going to abuse it. You're going to use it to your advantage at some point. And there was a video that kind of talked about that, you know, is, you know, it's dying for your cause, right? It's planting your feet, staring people in the eye, and telling people to move. You know, that's basically what it boils down to. And that's the video I'm kind of paraphrasing in a nutshell is a gentleman named Kane Carter, who's on YouTube, and he said, you know, the reason why they'll keep winning these wars and these battles is because they're willing to die for their cause, and we're not. As people, we're not. You know, people like Martin Luther King, leaders like that, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all those guys, you know, they're willing to die. They died for what they believed in, you know, but they were willing to go to those extents, you know, to make changes, to make these impacts in the earth, on this planet, in this society. And we're not willing to do that. You know, we think that meeting fire with fire is the answer, and it's not. You know, we're just senseless killing. It's senseless lives. It makes no sense. You know, and you got to backpedal from that. You know, you got to ease up. You got to ease up. You know, killing on killing isn't solving anything. You know, I'm not saying what they're doing is right, and I'm not saying what they're doing is right. You know what I mean? Because they believe they're doing what they believe in, and that's you know, a belief. You know, that's something that's what's inspiring them to do what they think is right. You know, and you know, it's just a vicious cycle. It's an unfortunate cycle that we will hopefully not see come to an end. You know, where martial law happens, and you know, we're just killing people, and it just gets nuts. You know, yeah, I could sit here all day talking about this, debating on this, but in the end, you know, we gotta persevere. We have to. We have to as people. But there's no choice. We have to. We have to persevere. And, you know, as a nation, that's a choice that we're all going to have to make. And unless somebody is willing to stand up and take charge and lead that, lead that message, I don't think we'll ever see a change until it's too late. And something unfavorable will happen. That's just the way of things. Because power sees power. Power recognizes power. And greater power doesn't struggle with other power. You know, they'll destroy it. You know, and that's what I foresee. You know, we're heading in that direction. We've been heading in that direction. We've been on that bus ride going downhill on fire with no steering wheel, no brakes for a while, and why we haven't crashed yet, I'm surprised, you know, that it's gone this long. You know, as long as I've lived, and I haven't lived that long, you know, to see these type of times, it's just nuts. It's just nuts. So, but we gotta persevere. We have to. And that's really all I got for y'all in this video. I appreciate y'all for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. Let's talk about what motivates you, and you know, where we can go, you know, what we can do with it, you know, with the inspiration, what inspirates you. And on a side note, actually, a buddy of mine said something that really stuck out to me. It was on my phone here. Bear with me here real quick. But we were talking about, you know, this basically what motivates you, and he said all I can really say is don't wait for others to validate you. You know, he wanted to give up on what he was doing, you know, his passion, and he just decided to just keep doing it. and it didn't matter if there was supporters or haters. You know, he says he's just gonna keep doing it no matter what. You know, and see it to the end. And you don't know the individual like I know him. You know what I mean? And for that to come from him is very inspiring. You know, that's perseverance. You know, and he has every reason to give up doing what he's doing. I'm not gonna air out his business. It's not my place. But you know, it's just nuts. You know, and it's crazy. You know, that we do wait for that. We do wait for that false validation, and it's just that false validation, and that's what social media has basically allowed. And honestly, you know, it's the same outlet though that we can use to voice our concerns and make these waves and change it, and we got to. So, like I said, I can keep rambling on. So. I'm gonna end the video here, and like I said, let's talk about it, you know, or let's not talk about it, whatever, you know. But that's what this is here for. So, as always, I love y'all, and peace and harmony, and I really hope we can do that. And I'll see y'all in the next one.